Hi there guys, I hope you have had a good day. Now, Anthony Joshua has questioned why Tyson Fury has not been in more challenging contests, because Tyson Fury turned pro in 2008. That was the same year that Anthony Joshua started boxing and had his first amateur fight. So Tyson Fury has been a pro for 5 years longer than Anthony Joshua, and Joshua wants to know, why hasn't Tyson Fury been in the same kind of contests that he has? I mean, obviously Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua share one name on their resume, or maybe more, but ultimately they do share one, Vladimir Klitschko. Then Tyson Fury has Deontay Wilder, and Derek Chisora I guess you could put on that as well. Many talks about Steve Cunningham, but I would say that he's a cruiserweight and all of his achievements came in the cruiserweight division. He didn't really make it at heavyweight, so I mean we can count him as a former world champion, but ultimately the top three names on Tyson Fury's resume are Vladimir Klitschko, Deontay Wilder, and Derek Chisora. Anthony Joshua has three top names in Vladimir Klitschko, Andy Ruiz, and Joe Parker, Alexander Povetkin. You can switch them in and out how you please, because remember, Joseph Parker was an undefeated world champion when Anthony Joshua fought him in a unification fight. So however you want to match them, you can do so. But if you go deeper on Anthony Joshua's resume, you will see names like Carlos Takam, Dillian White, and either Joseph Parker or Alexander Povetkin, dependent upon who you would put in that number 3 spot for AJ's resume. So Anthony Joshua undoubtedly does have the thicker resume of top 10 heavyweights. Tyson Fury has fought an elite level fighter in Vladimir Klitschko and a solid world champion in Deontay Wilder. I can't call Deontay Wilder an elite level fighter because I don't believe he had the resume in order to make a case for that. Vladimir Klitschko definitely was an elite level fighter. Joshua beat him, Tyson Fury beat him. They have that name that they share on their resume. But Anthony Joshua's argument is Tyson Fury is a year older and began his career 5 years before Anthony Joshua, and therefore Anthony Joshua has insisted that he has not had enough major fights in that 12-year career. Fury turned pro in 2008, obviously, and Anthony Joshua was just starting boxing in 2008. This is what Anthony Joshua had to say about Tyson Fury, those major fights, and his resume. So I've never known Tyson until I turned professional and started barking at the heels of these heavyweights who were docile. My relationship with Tyson is only because I progressed as quickly as I did, and he didn't progress quickly. He has 2 good wins over Klitschko and Wilder, but in a career that spans 12 years, I would have liked to see him in some more challenging competitions. Providing I get through Pulev, what more can I do to prove that I am ready for a fight with Tyson Fury? So that is what Anthony Joshua has had to say about Tyson Fury, the potential challenge between the two of them, and the fact that Fury has been a pro for 12 years, Anthony Joshua has been a pro for 7, and I'm guessing Joshua believes he's been in more challenging contests than Fury. And across the board, going deeper on their resume, I'm going to agree with that. But there is one thing about this. Tyson Fury has, yes, been a pro for 12 years, but he was inactive for 3 of those years, meaning that he's had 9 active years as a professional. I know that he was still an active boxer, or whatever you want to call it, during the absence from the ring. But still, he wasn't fighting, and he was in no condition to be fighting. So ultimately, that was 3 years lost from Tyson Fury's career, and that cannot be helped. But still, Anthony Joshua does have the thicker resume, and that is what we are talking about. So AJ has gone through mandatory challenges. He's been a champion for longer than Tyson Fury. He's defended belts, which Tyson Fury has never done. He will do against Deontay Wilder for the first time. But still, Tyson Fury has held all of the belts in the heavyweight division. Not at the same time, but he's held all of them. So there's not much more for Fury to achieve in boxing. He's had so many wins, so many belts that he has accumulated. So at the end of the day, does Fury really need to challenge these top 10 heavyweights? Well, he needs to fight Anthony Joshua. He needs to fight Povetkin, dependent upon who wins that fight between Dillian White and Povetkin in the rematch on November 21st, because that will be his mandatory. So Tyson Fury does need to start going through these heavyweights like Dillian White, like Anthony Joshua. And I believe he wants to fight Anthony Joshua. I believe that that is the only fight after Deontay Wilder that he is interested in. I think that Povetkin, Dillian White, those are fights that Tyson Fury would take and happily would take, because I think that he would be confident of beating those two fighters. But still, I think that Tyson Fury is only interested in those mega fights now. I think that he wants Anthony Joshua, he wants to fight Deontay Wilder next, but then it's Undisputed for Tyson Fury. And I'm not talking about Undisputed with all of the belts on the line. He'd fight Anthony Joshua with no belts on the line. He's only interested in the big fights. He's not going to be dictated to by the belts. He even said in a recent interview that the more belts you have, the more obligations you have, and the more you are dictated to by governing bodies. And no one dictates to the Gypsy King. That is what he has explained. So he's not going to be told what to do by governing bodies and be told who he's going to be fighting next. Tyson Fury wants to fight who he wants to fight, and he will not be dictated to by these governing bodies, not the WBC, Ring Magazine, WBA, WBO, or even IBF. I don't think he'd even want to fight for the IBF. I mean, he's got a really bad relationship with them because they stripped him as soon as he won that belt. So I don't know if he'd even want to fight for the IBF. I'm not really considering that he's bothered about any of the belts. He just wants to fight AJ. And ultimately, I think that he has to fight Dillian White or Povetkin before he gets to AJ, and Anthony Joshua has to fight Alexander Usyk, although they never talk about that. Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn never talk about Alexander Usyk. They talk about Kubrat Pulev, then at Tyson Fury. So what are they going to do about Alexander Usyk? Are they planning on Derek Chisora knocking him out? Or is there some way in which they are going to get around it? An exception. Maybe go to Usyk and say that they are going to vacate the belt straight after Undisputed, so he can go and fight in a vacant world title fight against the number 2 challenger, which would be Daniel Dubois. So at this point, we don't know how Undisputed is going to happen, but we do know that it's on the horizon, likely after their next 2 respected fights, because it's Deontay Wilder, then AJ. Then again, it's Kubrat Pulev, then Tyson Fury. So this fight is very close, and Anthony Joshua believes that these are the kind of fights that Tyson Fury needs to be in, considering he's been a pro for 12 years. And I admit, I would like to see Tyson Fury in there with maybe Joseph Parker, maybe Andy Ruiz, maybe Luis Ortiz, and definitely Dillian White or Alexander Povetkin, depending who wins that interim WBC title fight on November 21st. So these big fights with top 10 heavyweights are fights that Tyson Fury would be entertaining in, and fights we would want to see him in because they are competitive, like Anthony Joshua versus Povetkin, Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz Jr. So those fights are there for Tyson Fury, but he's not interested in the big fights. He's interested in the major fights at the moment, and that is Anthony Joshua. So there is no time for Tyson Fury to get those kind of names on his resume this side of fighting Anthony Joshua, because that is the fight that is important to him. Deontay Wilder, then AJ. He said that from the very beginning. That is what he is interested in. The path to number 1. I'm not even going to call it Undisputed for Tyson Fury, because that is not what he's interested in. It is Road to Undisputed for AJ, because that's what he wants. But as for Tyson Fury, he just wants to be number 1. He just wants to fight Anthony Joshua, regardless of what belts are on the line. Guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Anthony Joshua has explained that Tyson Fury should have been fighting more top 10 heavyweights, getting a better resume, considering he's been a pro for 12 years. Anthony Joshua's been a pro for 7 years and has better names on his resume. What are your thoughts on that? Guys, anyway, drop your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. Thanks, guys.